There's a part of you that you don't know. It's there when you have a flash of rage in traffic that feels disproportionate to the situation. It's there when you meet someone new and feel an instant, visceral dislike for no logical reason. It's there in the self-sabotaging impulse that makes you procrastinate on the one project that could change your life. It's the voice that whispers your deepest insecurities right before you fall asleep. What if these moments aren't random at all, but a sign that there's more to you than the you think you know? Psychologist Carl Jung believed that within each of us lies a hidden side, a collection of parts of ourselves that we've pushed out of sight. He proposed a radical and far more powerful idea that this other is not an intruder. It is, in fact, a fundamental part of who you are. He called it the shadow. Think of the shadow as a psychological backpack you've carried since birth. Into this backpack, you have stuffed every aspect of yourself that you were taught was unacceptable. Your anger, your selfishness, your vulnerability, your wildness. Shadow work is the courageous process of stopping, taking off that heavy backpack, and having the courage to look inside. It is a journey of integration, a process of owning all the disowned parts of yourself so they no longer control you from the dark. This guide will move beyond theory and into practice. We will explore the concrete actions you can take to begin this profound journey of becoming a whole, authentic person. Why bother with the darkness? Before we venture into the how, it's essential to understand the why. Why on earth would anyone voluntarily want to confront the parts of themselves they've spent a lifetime trying to hide? The answer is simple. Because what you don't own owns you. An unacknowledged shadow doesn't just sit quietly in its bag. It's an active, energetic part of your psyche, and it wants to be seen. The more you try to ignore it, the more it will find ways to make its presence known. Trying to suppress your shadow is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can do it for a while, with immense effort, but eventually your arms will get tired and that ball will shoot up to the surface with explosive force, often at the most inconvenient moment possible. This is the nice guy who is polite and accommodating to everyone until one day he erupts in a shocking fit of rage over a minor inconvenience. This is the highly disciplined health guru who preaches clean living but has a secret binge-eating habit. The shadow operates on the principle of compensation. The more extreme our conscious personality is in one direction, the more extreme the unconscious shadow becomes in the opposite. The more you consciously strive for saintly perfection, the more your shadow accumulates the sinful parts of your humanity. This is the root of so much self-sabotage. You're on the verge of a major success, and suddenly you find yourself procrastinating, picking fights with your supporters, or making careless mistakes. This is often the shadow at work. It fears the light. Your success threatens the limited, safe identity you've created. So the shadow rises up to pull you back down into familiar territory. Perhaps the most common way the shadow wreaks havoc is through projection. When we refuse to see a quality in ourselves, our minds have a clever trick. They make us see it everywhere in others. The world becomes a screen onto which we project our own inner darkness. The man who has repressed his own aggression sees a world full of angry, threatening people. The woman who has disowned her own ambition is constantly complaining about how ruthless and pushy her colleagues are. Ignoring the shadow doesn't bring peace. It creates a life of quiet desperation, punctuated by moments of chaos you can't explain. Shadow work is the decision to stop being a victim of these mysterious forces and to start a conscious conversation with them. The goal is not to eliminate the shadow. That's impossible. The goal is to integrate it. Integration means bringing these hidden parts into the light of your awareness. It means you are no longer driven by them unconsciously. Instead, you can look at them, understand their needs, and choose how to express their energy in a healthy, conscious way. It is the difference between being a puppet on a string and becoming the puppet master. The quickest way to meet your shadow is to pay attention to the people who trigger you. Other people are the most honest mirrors we have. When you have a strong, emotional, and often irrational reaction to someone, you have just struck shadow gold. The practical tool for this is a trigger journal. Let's imagine a woman named Lori. Lori prides herself on being a calm and humble person. She works with a colleague named Ben, who is loud, loves being the center of attention, and constantly talks about his achievements. Lori can't stand him. His very presence makes her skin crawl. Instead of just stewing in her judgment, Lori can use her trigger journal. The process looks like this. Describe the situation objectively. Lori would write, "Today in the meeting, Ben interrupted someone to share his recent success on a project. He spoke loudly and seemed very proud." Describe the emotional reaction. Next, she writes down her raw feelings. "I felt intense irritation and disgust. I wanted to tell him to shut up. I felt he was arrogant, narcissistic, and a show-off. My emotional reaction was a 10-10. Find the shadow connection. This is the crucial step. Lori asks herself the question, what quality in Ben is triggering me so strongly? Is it possible this quality is a disowned part of myself? She reflects on her childhood, remembering she was always praised for being quiet and modest. She was taught that wanting attention was bad. She realizes the quality that triggers her is the desire for recognition. Own the projection. Finally, she writes a statement of ownership. The part of me that wants to be seen and acknowledged for my hard work is being triggered by Ben. Because I have denied this part of myself, seeing him express it so freely makes me uncomfortable. The work isn't to become like Ben. The work is to acknowledge that the desire for recognition exists in her too. The intense emotional charge she feels toward Ben will begin to fade because she is no longer using him as a screen for her own inner drama. This also works for positive qualities, the golden shadow. If you find yourself deeply admiring someone's courage or creativity, use the same journal process. Note your intense admiration and ask, what quality in this person am I seeing that is actually my own undeveloped potential? This reveals the gold hidden in your shadow, waiting for you to claim it. While projections are the loudest way the shadow communicates, it also speaks in quieter, more subtle ways through our inner world. We can learn to tune into these signals if we know what to listen for. Dreams are a primary channel. Jung considered them a direct line to the unconscious. In dreams, the shadow often takes the form of a dark, menacing, or antagonistic figure who is the same sex as the dreamer. You might dream that you are being chased by a terrifying stranger, a monster, or even a dark version of yourself. Our natural instinct is to run away in fear, but in shadow work, the goal is to turn around and face the figure. Of course, you can't control what you do in a dream, but you can work with the dream upon waking. If you had such a dream, you could use a journal to start a dialogue with this dark figure. You could write down a description of them and then ask them questions. Who are you? What do you want from me? What part of my life do you represent? You might find that the monster chasing you represents the ambition you've been afraid to pursue. The menacing figure might embody the anger you've been suppressing. By giving it a voice, you begin the process of integration. Slips of the tongue and recurring fantasies are also messages from the shadow. Have you ever meant to say one thing, but something entirely different and often embarrassing came out? That slip is often a bubble of unconscious truth rising to the surface. Similarly, if you find yourself constantly fantasizing about telling off your boss, quitting your job in a dramatic fashion, or running away to a deserted island, don't just dismiss it as silly daydreaming. These fantasies are not literal instructions. They are symbolic communications. The fantasy of telling off your boss isn't necessarily telling you to be insubordinate. It's more likely a message from your shadow that your need for boundaries and respect is being ignored. Your conscious persona is being too compliant, so your shadow is generating extreme scenarios to get your attention. The work is to listen to the need behind the fantasy. How can you, consciously and healthily, start to be more assertive at work? By addressing the underlying need, the need for extreme fantasy will often fade. Our deepest insecurities and most painful emotional triggers are often directly connected to the origins of our shadow. These sensitive spots are our sacred wounds, and they are powerful gateways to understanding what we have disowned. The tool here is compassionate inquiry. Consider a man named David, who feels a crushing wave of shame whenever he makes a small mistake at work. His boss points out a typo, and for the rest of the day, David is consumed by an inner voice telling him he's a fraud. This reaction is far out of proportion to the event. This sacred wound points to a part of his shadow. Perhaps he grew up with highly critical parents, where anything less than perfection was met with disapproval. To survive, he had to become a perfectionist and shove his natural human fallibility deep into his shadow. The healing work for David is to meet this feeling of shame with compassion, not more self-criticism. When that wave of shame hits, he can practice this internal dialogue. Acknowledge the feeling. Instead of fighting it, he says to himself, okay, I am feeling a powerful wave of shame right now. Locate the wound. He asks, where have I felt this before? He remembers the feeling from his childhood of never being good enough for his parents. Offer compassion. He speaks to that younger part of himself. Ah, there you are. I know you. You are the part of me that learned it wasn't safe to be imperfect. I want you to know that you are safe now. It is okay to make mistakes. My worth is not defined by my perfection. By doing this, David is slowly integrating his fallibility. He is taking it out of the shadow and acknowledging it as a normal part of his whole self. This doesn't mean he stops trying to do good work. It means a simple mistake no longer has the power to shatter his sense of self. The art of integration. So, you've started to identify your shadow through your projections, your dreams, and your triggers. What now? This is where we move from awareness to the active process of integration. Again, this is not about acting out. It is about finding a conscious, healthy, and mature home for the energy that has been trapped in the darkness. Let's return to our examples. Lori, who hated her arrogant colleague Ben, has realized this points to her own disowned desire for recognition. Integration for Lori does not mean she starts boasting in the hallway. It means she consciously looks for healthy ways to honor that part of herself. She might make a point of speaking up in one meeting per week to share a good idea. She might start keeping a private list of her own accomplishments to remind herself of her value. She might take up a hobby like public speaking or amateur theater, giving that look at me energy a creative and contained outlet. She is giving that part of herself a job to do in the light, so it no longer has to scream for attention by making her hate Ben. What about the golden shadow? Our friend who admired his courageous artist friend could start a courage practice. He might decide to do one small thing that scares him every week. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation he's been avoiding, or signing up for a class where he knows no one. He is building his own courage muscle instead of just admiring it from afar. When you discover your repressed anger, integration means learning the language of healthy boundaries. It's learning to say no, calmly and firmly. It's expressing your needs before resentment builds up. The energy of anger, when integrated, becomes the fuel for self-respect and justice. When you discover your repressed vulnerability, integration means choosing to share something real and personal with a trusted friend, allowing yourself to be seen in your imperfection. That energy, when integrated, becomes the foundation of true intimacy and connection. Integration is a creative process. It's about becoming a better parent to yourself. You are looking at these disowned, childish parts of you, the angry part, the needy part, the wild part. And instead of locking them in the basement, you are inviting them into the living room. You are listening to their needs and finding mature, constructive ways to meet them. Shadow work is not a destination you arrive at. There is no point at which you can say, I'm done. My shadow is fully integrated. It is a lifelong practice, a dance between the light and the dark that makes us who we are. As we grow and change, different aspects of our shadow will emerge, asking for our attention. Carl Jung once said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The journey requires immense courage. It's much easier to live on the surface, to blame others for our problems, and to pretend we are simpler and better than we actually are. But this path, while easier, leads to a life that is small, brittle, and inauthentic. The path of shadow work is the path to becoming real. It is messy, uncomfortable, and it will challenge everything you think you know about yourself. But it is also the only path to true freedom and wholeness. By having the courage to turn and face the darkness within, you reclaim the energy you were wasting on repression. You develop a profound compassion for yourself and for others. You unlock the hidden gold of your creativity, your strength, and your passion. You stop fighting the stranger within and realize they have been your most loyal guide all along, patiently waiting in the dark to lead you back to the magnificent, complex, and complete person you were always meant to be. Take a second to hit that subscribe button, and let's keep exploring thought-provoking ideas together. If any part of this resonated with you, share it in the comments.